Hey, what's up, guys? Pete Alonso here from the New York Mets, and I'm here with Alfred, and I just want to say thank you so much to all you guys for listening to the Metropolitan Report. It's a really awesome show. You got some great insight on Mets baseball, and it's a great place where Mets baseball is talked about, and we got a lot of really fun stuff coming up this year, and a lot of really great things coming from this team in the clubhouse, and I'm really, really excited to keep the ball rolling, and it's been such a fun season, and I'm really thankful for everybody coming out to the ballpark and supporting us, and it's just been absolutely tremendous. So thank everybody for listening to the Metropolitan Report, and Alfred, keep doing your thing, and as always, LFGM.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an all-new edition of the Metropolitan Report. I am your host, Alfred Parsard Jr., and here on this podcast, we talk about any and everything New York Mets. Just a friendly reminder that the Metropolitan Report is a proud member of the Grid Network of Sports Podcasts. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a loaded show for you today. We're going to talk about Mets that are going on the injured list. We're going to talk about Mets that are impressing in spring training, who some say should make the team. We're going to talk about an ex-Met who is going to make a World Baseball Classic roster and already made his debut in the tournament just this morning as this is being recorded. And we're going to talk about Mets who their futures may have been derailed in one form or another. So we're going to start this show off with interesting developments. First off, we're going to talk about the youngsters, and the future is not so bright for the following young man. Mets prospect outfielder Khalil Lee, ladies and gentlemen. Khalil Lee was a pipeline top-rated prospect in the Royals organization. The Mets did make a trade for him in the offseason between 2020 and 2021. He's had 2 cups of coffee in the major leagues, both for the Mets in 2021 and 2022. Khalil Lee, the reason why I'm bringing him up is this is significant news. He is accused of choking and hitting his ex-girlfriend last season in 2022. The allegations were made around May of last year in Syracuse while he played for the Mets AAA affiliate, the Syracuse Mets. Khalil Lee, even though this has nothing to do with his case, his career numbers, he's had 20 major league at-bats through 2 seasons with an average of 100 with 1 home run, 4 RBIs, and an OPS of 400. He is touted as a big prospect in the Mets pipeline. Of course, he was the bigger prospect before the emergence of Vientos, Beatty, Mauricio, and Alvarez. However, he's in a bit of trouble. Again, as mentioned, he has the domestic abuse allegation. He missed his most recent court date on March 3rd. His attorney went to the judge and said, hey, my client is at spring training, so he won't be able to make it. The judge responded with, and I quote, I don't care if he is a Syracuse Met. Next court date is scheduled for April 11th. If Khalil Lee does not make that appearance in court in Syracuse, and on April 11th, a bench warrant will be issued for his arrest. Now, what the Mets did when the allegations became public back in January, they outrighted him off the 40-man roster. Of course, Khalil Lee was on that 40-man roster since 2021. Finally removed, he was designated for assignment. He cleared waivers, and the Mets were able to retain him back at the minor league level since no team put a waiver claim on Khalil Lee. The big question is, with this domestic violence charge and a court case looming over Khalil Lee, especially because he's so young, is his career over? Now, we've seen what domestic violence allegations, both proven and unproven, have done to several major leaguers. Trevor Bauer is the first one that comes to mind. Trevor Bauer, of course, now a free agent, was the prize acquisition of the Dodgers entering the 2021 season. And he had a rape allegation, much more, which, I mean, one is not worse than the other, but rape allegation. I believe that the accuser recanted and the charge is proven untrue, suspended by Major League Baseball, and then the suspension was rescinded upon appeal. or shortened, I should say. So the suspension is over, but the Dodgers, they designated him for assignment, and nobody's touched him since. Can't get back in the league. Marcell Ozuna of the Atlanta Braves also comes to mind. He was actually found guilty of domestic violence against his wife, but he got suspended and has since been allowed to play. Same thing with former Mets closer Jeurys Familia, proven guilty of domestic violence against his wife, and he served a suspension. Career resumed. So this can go one of either two ways. I think he's going to have a career, or at least another shot at the bigs. The only reason why I say that is because rather than just get rid of him completely, yes, they offed him off the 40-man roster to open up a roster spot, but the Mets, after he cleared waivers, brought him right back. They brought him back to spring training, albeit in minor league camp, but they did bring Khalil Lee back to minor league camp. I'm assuming should he cooperate with law enforcement and not miss any more court dates, even though he missed it due to baseball activities, I do believe that there is a chance that this young man can come back and get another stint in the big leagues. But Khalil Lee is a young man, plenty of not just baseball, but life is ahead of him. And again, it's an encouraging sign that the Mets, again, brought him back on a minor league deal. And he's been in camp for approximately 3 weeks now. Hasn't played in any spring training games, obviously, but doing conditioning and doing drills and just getting ready for the minor league season. He's going to start the season in AAA Syracuse, so it remains to be seen what the future holds for him. But very encouraging sign that the organization at least brought him back and gave him a spot. But again, if for those of you who may have a difference of opinion, sound off in the comments, or should he even get another chance is the question. Again, he was accused of hitting and choking his ex-girlfriend last May after an argument. Moving on to another minor leaguer whose future, not just in the organization, but in baseball period, is in question, Matthew Allen, who was the prized pick of the 2019 MLB draft. Of course, Matt Allen has not pitched since 2019, has not seen game action since 2019. In late 2021, he had Tommy John surgery. Of course, in 2020, with COVID shortening the season, the minor league season was canceled. So anybody that was at the AA, AAA, single A level, unless you got called up, you did not play competitive baseball in 2020. So that's one season missed. And then he had Tommy John in late 2021. And then just several weeks ago, Matt Allen had a follow-up to the Tommy John surgery. He had a nerve transportation surgery in the same elbow. He's expected to be sidelined for another year. Not good. Tommy John is already difficult to come back from. Of course, we've seen plenty of pitchers have Tommy John one season and then come back the very next season or season after have successful careers. Jacob deGrom, like I've said on this program before, when we talked about Joey Lucchesi back in episode 1, Jacob deGrom in 2014 had Tommy John, and look what Jacob deGrom turned into. Rookie of the year, back-to-back Cy Youngs. So, I mean, but it remains to be seen. This is very disheartening for this kid. Again, we're in 2023 now, so 2019 is 4 seasons ago. He has not thrown a pitch in a game in going on 4 years. He's going to miss all of this year. Matt Allen was figured in to be the next ace of the Mets when they drafted him. He was a very expensive draft pick with a signing bonus of $2.9 million. That $2.9 million doesn't look well spent right now, because outside of several months that he spent in the 2019 season pitching in low A ball, Mets haven't gotten anything produced out of him. And it's crazy to think that Matt Allen started playing baseball in the organization before Francisco Alvarez, before Brett Beatty, and all those guys are right now competing for major league spots in spring training, and he's just trying to see if he can get on the field to play single A ball in Brooklyn. too many injuries in the same arm. That's not an encouraging sign whatsoever. It just I'm not saying that he can't have a career. It just looks very, very grim. Again, not playing since 2019. He's gonna miss by the time let's say he is assumed to be healthy, 2024. Haven't thrown a pitch in 5 years. I mean, we've seen comebacks after lengthy layoffs, but I can't even call it a comeback because he hasn't gotten started. So I don't know. I personally think, and I'm not even trying to sound cruel, the Mets should just cut their losses and move on. Because again, Tommy John's already a catastrophic surgery to have. Not easy to come back from. And, then you have a nerve transportation surgery, I'm sorry. In the same elbow, that's not easy to come back from either. Yeah, I'm not trying to sound cruel, but he hasn't been worth the investment. That $2.9 million that they've paid him, and you haven't gotten a single pitch thrown in what's going to be 5 years by the time he's healthy. Not worth it. I personally think the Mets should move on from Matt Allen. They've moved on from other players in the organization that have made the major league level for far less. So I think Matt Allen should pack his bags and head off to another organization if he can find another organization to go play baseball for. Well, at this rate, only God knows if he'll ever play again, but you know what I mean. Speaking of guys who's not playing anytime soon, Jose Quintana, who we've covered here on the program previously in the last episode. Jose Quintana has been removed from the Colombian national baseball team that's set to participate in this year's World Baseball Classic. Jose Quintana, after his last spring start for the Mets several days ago, was injured, experienced discomfort in his side. He was then sent to New York from Port St. Lucie for imaging, and come to find out he has a stress fracture in his 5th rib. So a rib stress fracture. On the spring, he's 0-1 with a 27 ERA. He's pitched a combined 1 2/3 innings, striking out 1, walking 1. I hate to bring this type of speculation or this type of conversation this early on into a player's tenure with the organization, but I think he's a bad signing. I mean, granted, he had that decent season in St. Louis as their 5th starter last season. He had a couple good seasons in Chicago with the White Sox, but first off, you come to spring training with your new team after they just signed you, gave you a nice contract, and you become a piñata. And then not only do you become a piñata, now you're hurt. And there's competition now for this 5th spot because stress fracture in the rib, we don't know how long that's going to take. And like I said on the previous edition of the Metropolitan Report, you got David Peterson and Tyler McGill waiting in the wings for an opportunity, should an opportunity open up. And we've seen Verlander look good this spring. Scherzer looked good. Carrasco had an okay outing. Kodai Senga had a decent outing. So really the only spot that's up for grabs now is the 5th roster spot. Speaking of McGill, he made an appearance over the weekend in the same game that Quintana was hurt. McGill, 3 strikeouts, no runs allowed in 2 1/3 innings pitched, scoreless, didn't walk anybody. So like I said on the previous edition of the Metropolitan Report, I believe that McGill should be the 5th starter. And by the way things are looking here, McGill more than likely is going to be that 5th starter. Again, no timetable on the return of Quintana. He has been pulled from the Colombian national team in the World Baseball Classic. He will not play. Again, has that stress fracture in his 5th rib. So, I mean, is it too early to call him a bad signing? I don't know. I'm a guy who likes results. I like to see results. I demand results out of these guys. And, again, for a guy to be a prize free agent signing, and then you go ahead and become a human piñata in spring training, guys licking their chops to get an at bat against you. Not a good look. And now you're getting injured. So my personal feelings, I think that the Mets were unsure that they were going to get Kodai Senga, because look at the starters they had prior to signing Quintana. They already had Verlander. They already had Scherzer. Senga wasn't locked up just yet, but you have Peterson and McGill, and then you go and get Quintana as the fifth starter. You bump McGill or Peterson out because now Senga comes in. So I think that was an emergency signing to shore up the rotation that the Mets made. They, again, not sure that they were going to get Senga, but then when they got Senga, now they have a surplus of starting pitching. I think it was a rush move. Granted, there were several pitchers that the Mets could have, thrown the bag at. Carlos Rodon could have been one of them, but he went to the Yankees, and so on and so forth. But Quintana's stint so far in his Mets career not looking good, and I'm going to admit I'm not a fan. Not a fan at all. Moving ahead, speaking of the World Baseball Classic, which we just mentioned, former Mets superstar playing in this year's World Baseball Classic. Of course, the opening game of the World Baseball Classic last night, the Netherlands defeating Cuba and playing for Cuba. And this is a first because as not even just baseball, but sports history has told the lore of Cuban national teams so many times. Anybody who defected from Cuba could not go back to Cuba and return, and definitely could not play for any other national sports teams. But Yoenis Cespedes was granted permission to play on Team Cuba. He's one of several former major league players who are playing on Team Cuba. There are a couple active players like Luis Robert and Yoan Moncada of the White Sox are playing for Cuba. Andy Ibanez of the Tigers also playing for Team Cuba. But Yoenis Cespedes looking to make a major league comeback. He said that his goal is to get back to the majors. Of course, Yoenis Cespedes hasn't played big league ball since 2020 when he played for the Mets. Of course, that tenure didn't end well because he opted out citing COVID concerns, and we later found out that was all a lie. He has played professional baseball. He was in the Winter Dominican League this past Dominican League season, where he hit 188 with 4 home runs and 11 RBIs in the Dominican League. He did play for the Aguilas. He did have 4 plate appearances in this game against the Netherlands for Cuba. He went 0 for 2 with 2 walks against the Netherlands, so he did show some plate discipline. Did Yoenis Cespedes? 0 for 2. He didn't strike out at all. The 2 official plate appearances, because of course walks don't count. But the 2 balls that he put in play, both ground balls. But his plate discipline is there. Historically, Cespedes has struggled with plate discipline, so I was very surprised to see him draw 2 walks. Coming into this game tonight against the Netherlands, Cespedes, believe it or not, is the all-time leader in OPS in the World Baseball Classic. He had an OPS of 1,000. Of course, that's going to go down now that he went 0 for 2 with 2 walks. But Terry Collins, in an article by Forbes earlier this week, stated that he believes that Cespedes has all the tools to get back to the majors. Even encouraged the Mets to take a look at Cespedes. It remains to be seen what he will do for the rest of the tournament, and it remains to be seen if any major league teams are going to be interested in Cespedes. But it's interesting to keep an eye on because Cespedes always did say that he was going to make it back to the majors one day. That is his goal. Even turned down an invitation to Old Timers Day last year when the Mets had their Old Timers Day. So it remains to be seen. From what I saw from Cespedes, I did see all 4 at bats. Again, his plate discipline is on point. Bat speed doesn't look too good, but you guys can be the judge by watching the tournament footage. Now let's shift focus to Major League Camp. I know we've been talking about guys who are either no longer in the organization or guys who are missing time. Another Met that's struggling in camp, trying to make the team. This guy's on the hook, especially with Brett Beatty and Ronnie Mauricio tearing things up. It's not looking good for this guy, Darin Ruf. Darin Ruf, who was having issues with his wrist all spring. The official injury report cites arthritis in his wrist, so he has an arthritic wrist. Of course, Ruf, 36 years of age. Darin Ruf, with Pete Alonso and the rest of the Mets who are playing in the World Baseball Classic away from the team, that opened up some spots this spring. Darin Ruf played first base for the against the Astros yesterday. In that game, he went 0 for 3. So again, 0 for 3 in his spring debut. Didn't look too good. Of course, Darin Ruf was notable for his struggling 2022 season where he split between the San Francisco Giants and us. He was a trade deadline acquisition and a very weird one because we traded J.D. Davis for Darin Ruf 1-for-1 straight up. In 2022, he had a 204 average, 11 home runs, 45 RBIs, and 2 stolen bases. For a guy to come into camp hampered with injuries and now not can't even make contact on the ball. It's not good, and a lot of Met fans did not like the acquisition of Darin Ruf at the trade deadline last season. I particularly didn't either. This is great. This is going to sound weird to say, but not weird, but I liked Vogelback and I like Tyler Naquin. It's a shame that Tyler Naquin's not in the organization anymore, but Darin Ruf might get outplayed, especially Darin Ruf can play first base, but you're not going to see much time in first base, not with Pete Alonso commanding first. You're not going to see much time in the outfield because that outfield situation is already crowded with Starling Marte, Brandon Nimmo, and Mark Canha, and then the backup Tommy Pham that they just signed. So Darin Ruf, if he doesn't get it together by the end of the spring, he may start this season either in Syracuse or, he is a veteran with enough service time. So should he not want to go to Syracuse, he can elect free agency. But Darin Ruf is not looking good for him at all. Especially with the wrist injury. He's been receiving cortisone treatments quite regularly on that arthritic wrist. And another reason why Darin Ruf may struggle to make the team is because Tim Locastro is playing very well this spring. Locastro, who was a non-roster invitee to Mets camp this year. So non-roster invitee, meaning he's not in the organization. He's not on the 40-man. He doesn't have a contract, not even a minors contract. This is just a guy trying to make the club. Locastro's batting .350 this spring. He doesn't have any homers, but he has 5 RBIs and 5 stolen bases. Locastro is an outfielder. Again, the Mets, that platoon in the outfield is a crowded situation, but if you've got a guy like Tim Locastro who's consistently making contact with a .350 average, the guy's already swiped 5 bags in spring training alone. We need a stolen base threat. Outside of Starling Marte and Lindor, I can't think of anybody on the active roster that I've seen swipe a large amount of bases. But Locastro playing very, very well. He had a horrid offensive year last year. Hit under 200 for the Yankees. But the thing that everybody likes about Locastro, speedy runner and a great defender in the outfield. So guys like Locastro, if they keep playing the way that they're playing, Darin Ruf, he might have to pack his bags and clear out his locker in Flushing. And then again, of course, we talked about it. Mauricio, Beatty, both are playing well in spring training as well. So this has been a loaded Metropolitan Report, lots to talk about. Does Locastro make the team? If I were making final cuts, I honestly, if the trend keeps going upward for Locastro and down for Ruf, I'm getting rid of Ruf in favor of Locastro. It would be a similar situation to the beginning of last season when Buck had Travis Jankowski make the opening day roster, although Jankowski had a very limited role going forward in the 2022 season to start. But again, Locastro, Playing very well this spring, and I've been impressed by what I've seen from the young man. Next week here on the program, if any of the Mets between now and next week that are playing in the WBC do anything significant, we're going to talk about it. We're also going to keep our eyes peeled for developments on what the Mets who remain in Port St. Lucie, who are not playing in the tournament. We're going to keep an eye on what they're doing, and if anything notable happens or significant happens, it'll be discussed right here. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the Metropolitan Report is a proud member of the Grid Network. You can follow the Grid on Instagram and Twitter at _Grid GRYD Network. And of course, you can follow the Metropolitan Report at _Metropolitan_Report. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, I am Alfred Parsard Jr., and this has been the Metropolitan Report. And don't forget, stay tuned to our social media pages. We'll be bringing you little factoids and exclusive tidbits along the way in between episodes and on the YouTube as well. Well, I've said everything that there is to say, and the only thing left to say is, let's go Mets.